Yo, what is up everyone, it's Spicysushi. So as usual, I wanted to do a league start video going over the top league starter considerations for 3.24 as well as my strategy for the first week, as well as the starter that I'll be playing. Now, this league is definitely not as simple as most leagues. There are absolutely an absurd amount of changes going on. It is a bit overwhelming, so I'm probably not sticking to any one certain thing that I'm doing at the start of a league. I might branch off to other ones, but I'll go over everything later in the video. If you're just now catching up on PoE news, early game Atlas juice is much stronger than it has really ever been. On the Atlas that I've been messing around with, I believe I'm going to be getting like a 100% chance at spawning Expedition, Legion, Beyond, like an 80-ish% chance of a Delirium Mirror, while at the same time, like 80% increased map mod effect, which is a lot higher than the old Wandering Path, which capped at, I believe, like 60-ish. If you don't know what that means, like, let's say you scour, then you chisel, and you alch, and you get like 5 mods for, let's say, around 95% quantity and 29% pack size. This would be turned into like 171% quant and 52 pack size before you take like any altars in the map. And this is not including as well like I believe another like 30% pack size on top of Eldritch mobs. And this is with literally zero investment. This isn't even talking about all the new scarabs that are being added. This is using like the new keystone that lets you just have 20 bonus Atlas points at the negative of no scarabs dropping. It gets pretty complex, but I'll go over that later because there's still a lot of things to consider. Like, I have no clue what kind of scarabs are getting added. I'm not sure how valuable they'll be. They did remove the ability to reroll scarabs with harvest, and so I think even though there's so many sources of them, they might still be very, very valuable, like certain ones obviously. So I haven't even considered an in-game Atlas with that yet. But anyway, like I said, I'll go over it later. Now, that being said, these maps, along with T17s, are going to be incredibly hard. Usually, I wouldn't even consider this amount of juice before something like a Headhunter, but I do think there are some starters available to us that will make this type of content doable. But I do know that this is not the end game for everyone, right? That's just what happens when you have a sandbox game like PoE, because we not only have like a revamped Atlas combined with like a fresh end-game system to explore with, compasses removed, brand new scarabs added, scarabs completely redesigned. There's going to be new pinnacle content that bossers and really high investment, high-end builds can have fun with, like Valdo puzzle boxes added last league, and then the much more available T17 maps. Uber's being revamped, not to mention outside of the Atlas, there's strategies that are a favorite for a lot of people, such as Sanctum. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into starters that I would recommend depending on the content that you decide to do. So, number one, I feel like I do need to talk about well-rounders. These are builds that are good at most content in the game, and they are usually the most popular league starter because when people come into PoE into a new league, they want to explore the new content, maybe not the highest end of it, but they still want to be able to, experience the lead mechanic as well as do the Atlas strat that they are excited for, as well as potentially push the build a bit further to maybe do like T17s or Ubers, whatever you want to do, right? A well-rounder is more of a build that is like maybe B tier at most things in the game. It could be A tier at a couple of things, which gives it a bit of appeal, but usually never S tier at a certain thing. I think one of the most perfect examples of this is EA Ballista. This is still a very strong build, and it's what I used to play for a few leagues in a row because it had really, really strong single target, pretty good clear, probably like a high B tier clear, I'd say, because of Ignite Proliferation. It wasn't the fastest build at all, but it was very chill, very AFK, so I didn't mind it at all, and I really liked the build for a while. Now, this league, I think I have to mention it. I think Detonate Dead is just absurd. I can't believe it didn't get nerfed because DD is probably the best well-rounded build in the game right now, especially Cast on Crit DD by Ruetoo. This is an all-rounder build that I wouldn't really say it's B tier at anything more than maybe a couple of things. It's A tier at probably most content in the game, and then it's S tier at some things, maybe, like I'd say maybe bossing on a budget. B tier only in really things like, niche content such as Sanctum, and possibly like farming T17s or Ubers, but really it's A tier across the board in most content. Like when it comes to if you're wanting to be an expedition farmer, if you want to farm Blight, if you want to do delirious content, Beyond, even Magic Find, you can set it up because the build really runs on nothing. So if I was wanting to really experience everything that the league has to offer, I would probably play Cast on Crit DD. Now normally I would maybe hesitate from recommending a build to everyone, because if there's a couple of uniques that helps the build run, you know, obviously those are going to skyrocket and it may look like a trap to a lot of people. But in this situation, the build really is just an absolute joke to put together. You know, even though something like Lightning Arrow has a bunch of rare items such as an Ellie bow, that's still, an Ellie bow is not super easy to acquire, and so the price for a good one is going to go up depending on the amount of people playing it. But for something like Cast on Crit Detonate Dead, you really just need like 2 modifiers on your weapon to get going, and then you don't even really upgrade it a whole lot from there, and you should have a pretty easy time. I think the only really negative thing I can say about it is that I don't know if there's actually going to be a guide on YouTube. If there is one, I will link it below. But Cast on Crit is not exactly the most simple thing to play. There are breakpoints that you have to pay attention to, because anything you change when it comes to your cooldown recovery and attack rate is going to influence your DPS greatly. And so if you're a brand new player, this may be a little bit difficult for you to overcome. You are probably going to have to get very familiar with something like Path of Building. Now, if you don't want to play Cast on Crit, there is the option of other Detonate Dead builds, which I believe are pretty close when it comes to Cast on Crit DD. It's just the problem is that you're going to have to enjoy pressing 2 buttons. Elementalist DD is still as strong as ever. It is probably the strongest DD when it comes to doing all content, but it is 2 buttons. So for some people, you're not going to want to alternate 2 abilities nonstop, and that is completely understandable. But Ignite DD, it gets dot cap, which is around 36 mil, quite easily. It has good clear because of Ignite proliferation. I've personally never played it because I didn't know if I'd like the 2-button playstyle, but turns out I actually do, so it is a really strong starter. Now, the third Detonate Dead I'll talk about is going to be Necromancer DD. Now, when it comes to softcore trade, there isn't a whole lot that Necromancer offers compared to the other 2. It is the most popular build, I'd say, in SSF HC right now, but that's mainly because it can do a ton of damage with like no gear investment and be very tanky at the same time, which isn't a massive concern for softcore trade since you have access to a lot of gear on trade, and then also you don't have to be as tanky as you need to be in hardcore. But funnily enough, this actually is probably the DD that I'll be picking. It is a 2-button playstyle. You are going to need a trans gem just like Cast on Crit, but I really enjoy how you can get the build going with like no investment. And the main thing I really love about Necromancer is that it is incredibly fast. You're going to be able to get up to like 180% plus movement speed, not even including the 10 attack rate shield charge that you're going to have on that kind of build because of Corpse Pact and Flesh Offering. With how juice maps are, speed is not really the biggest concern. It's more so like damage and defense, but what I like about Necromancer is that you can get basically enough damage, I think, for these maps, and then you'll be tanky enough and you'll be zooming through them extremely fast. I think I'm going to be doing Alkengo, so, you know, normally a concern would be like, well, the faster I do my maps, the faster I have to get back to buying compasses and scarabs from people, but for this type of content, it's really just going to be chisel, Alk, go, chisel, out, go, like just clear the map and get out, and that's why I'm really excited to play this type of build, and I'll go over that later on how I'm going to build that. Now, alright, so after all-rounders, I think I should talk about like bossing and pinnacle content. If you're wanting to be more involved with like T17 maps or Ubers, invitation farming, stuff like that, I think my go-to choice would probably be Hexblast Mines. It's a really, really strong bosser, and it's actually quite chill to play because it is an auto-targeting mine skill. So when I played it, I actually league started it 2 leagues ago. It didn't really feel like I was playing a miner. It mainly felt like I was just playing a right-click skill because I didn't have to worry about really where I was throwing any of my stuff. And with the new mastery, which is going to auto-detonate your mines for you whenever you move, I think it's going to be very chill. So that's kind of the recommendation I've just been giving to everyone, not only for this pinnacle content, but also for stuff like Sanctum. I think some other good options for pinnacle content is definitely going to be Explosive Trap, though I haven't really looked into it. I haven't played it myself, so I'm not totally sure, because I did see it did get nerfed in the patch notes. Another option for Sanctum, I think Captain Lance has some really cool stuff he's cooking up, and then Icicle Mines has been a really popular Sanctum choice as well. I'll go ahead and talk about Magic Finding. I think, Magic Finders, I don't really need to say much, because usually you're probably a Deadeye, and most of the time you're probably playing Lightning Arrow, so, those people that make up like 30% of the player base, I know Tornado Shot is nerfed on the high end, but you really don't have to worry about your starter because it hasn't changed. Lightning Arrow is just kind of the go-to. There are some new options now for the high end. I think Penance Brand will still be probably good for high end Magic Find. I think Detonate Dead will actually be an option as well. But when it comes to bow players, usually if you're a Magic Finder, you're a bow player, and usually bow players want to play Tornado Shot, so they're looking for new things. You might actually be playing Lightning Arrow from the start until the very end. You know, usually build creators don't think of anything other than Tornado Shot because it overpowered every single bow skill in the game. So maybe now that it's gone, there's going to be some new stuff that's cooked up. I have seen some interesting stuff that's been coming out from Fubgun, so we'll see maybe later on. I don't think your starter is going to change at all. Now, for people that are more interested in things like maybe farming Expedition, I know a large portion of my audience is into that. I think DD is really, really strong for that, and that's probably what I'm going to be playing for Expedition. When it comes to Harvest, DD is also really good. So it really comes down to, do you want to play DD? If your answer is no, there are a lot of options, and I'll probably have a few of them linked below. I think Bone Shatter is still going to be really strong. I think Palsteron has a really cool Archmage build that he's come up with, and so that is an option. When it comes to content below the stuff that I've talked about, you can really pick whatever you want. But when it comes to like doing like really juice mapping, you really kind of need to be very specific, and I think you can't really beat Detonate Dead or something like Hexblast or, you know, Lightning Arrow Deadeye for this type of content. But outside of that, you really like have a lot of agency over what you play, and there's a lot of options. So I don't want to discredit any of that, and I will link stuff below that looks fun to me that you can maybe check out. But anyway, let's go ahead and jump into the Atlas strat as well as my starter. Anyway, my starter for this league is actually going to be Impulsa, Poet's Pen, Chain DD, Necromancer. Now, I'm probably not going to have a build guide for this because this is honestly kind of a really weird build. It is not a well-rounded build. It is made for one thing, and that is to do juiced maps next league and Expedition, because I do want to farm some of these juice maps that I talked about earlier. I'll show the Atlas soon, and I do want to be able to do some Expedition because I think Rog is going to be stronger than he has ever been this league, even with Necropolis crafting existing. I'm probably going to have a separate video on Rog because already this video is going to be long, and I don't want to go into Rog for a while because most people don't even want to care to listen to that anyway. But yeah, so this is basically just utilizing the attack speed that Necro gives and the damage that DD has to be able to put together kind of a map blaster. It can do Legion, and it can do Deli just fine. I could even go up, like even with this setup, I've been able to go up to 80% Delirious and not have any issues, so I'm not too worried about that. Now the Impulsa, someone in chat actually recommended it because I was having issues with my clear, and they recommended Impulsa. Since Necromancer, you get free shocks, some pretty thick free shocks, so I decided to throw it in, and it feels really good. The problem is you drop a lot of defense to throw in an Impulsa. The build does have like 250 plus K EHP before Impulsa, and then it drops down to like 190 or something with it. I think it will be fine. If the maps are like brutal, I can always throw in Bone Offering to reach like almost block cap, because Flesh Offering is really just for damage. But yeah, all this is really utilizing is a 3-link Detonate Dead of Chaining, of Chain Reaction, and Necromancer. I have a cluster in this setup, but overall it's pretty decently easy to put together. So that is one reason why I chose it. I'm just going to play self-cast Necromancer until I got my Void Stones, like until I've killed Maven, Uber Elder, done my invitations that I need for my favorite slots. And then once my Atlas is basically completed, I'm going to buy a Poet's Pen, however much it is, and then I can throw together a pretty budget setup, and it's not going to be too big of an issue. So yeah, I'll go through the POBs with you if you want to follow it. I'm not making a build guide because I'm going to be honest, I considered it. And then the left click patch kind of made the build not as fun to play as it used to be. It was actually very chill, but now I actually have to like micromanage focus, because focus is actually how I trigger my curses. It's how I trigger my offering. So you need to be like kind of on top of it, because it has Hex Bloom with the curses. So it's going to be like really important to actually time your focus to spread curses throughout an entire Legion, because it can do Legion. It has enough AoE, and the Impulsive Explosions help a lot. But you're going to have to like time your focus to spread curses through the entire Legion, spread like curses throughout an entire Expedition, big boom, because you're really dealing with, you know, a 3-link, right? Like your DPS is not even close to a 6-link. Obviously it gets insane with a Squire, but I don't know how much Squire is going to be, so I'm going to assume I'm going to play without it. The setup that I'm going to have like in POB is the setup that I'll play with until I get Squire, until I get Mage Blood, etc. But I haven't really prepared any of that, like any of that late game stuff, because I don't know how much the prices are going to be. But yeah, So anyway, let's go ahead and jump into the PUBs, and then I'll go over the Atlas, etc., and everything like that. Alright, so here's the POB I'll have like in the Google Sheet. If you do want to follow what I'm doing, it's not going to go very far budget-wise. I will have like a level 95 POB for what I'm doing, which is going to be Poet's Pen. If you're looking for something else, there's probably going to be some other guides out there because there are multiple ways to scale Necromancer. Obviously, we are going to be playing Self-Cast though for a while, so if you're wanting to play Poet's Pen very early on, I don't really recommend it because your DPS is going to be really low, so just keep that in mind. But what I did here was I actually made like a whole leveling tree. You can click through these, and then you can click through the, the leveling skills, the DD swap at level 75, and self-cast, and Poet's Pen if you do want to play that, which, I mean, I assume if you're following my POB, you probably do want to do that. But yeah, I'm still working on like the level 95 setup that I'm going to have. It's going to be, a little bit more higher budget, but you should be fine to complete the entire game, get all of your Atlas points, Void Stones with just self-cast. So there is that. Now, what I'm going to do, because there's not really that many guides out there for DD, Chain, Necromancer. The only one is like Ben, but I'm pretty sure it's not even a guide. I think it's just a POB. So I do feel a little bit obligated to go into depth. So because there is some specifics, such as like getting your Spectres set up, and damage scalars in the build are different from other builds. Since it's a hit-based non-crit to start, a lot of it, and it's not a spell, it's just straight up fire damage that we're scaling as well with minion damage. So there are some specifics. I'll probably make like a Google Sheet that has an FAQ over the entire build, or a Google Docs that like walks you through the build, because I know some people are going to want to follow what I do, as is like every league, and I don't want you guys to be lost. So keep an eye out for that. I'll probably update the video description when that's ready before leagues start. And yeah, so anyway, let's go ahead and jump with the Atlas trees real quick. Alright, so I figured I would go over like my starter Atlas for Atlas completion, and then next I'll go over like the in-game Atlas really quick. So I'm going to take these June nodes first. This is going to give me like a 40% chance of getting June in all of my maps. I want to get this very early on because veiled items are basically going to be all of my gear up until in-game when I start doing Expedition. Since Detonate Dead can work with like no gear, I'm actually not going to take Expedition early. I'm going to assume that I'm going to get basically everything I need just from veiled items that are dropping, because June is going to be in a lot of my maps. So when a veiled item drops, I get that guaranteed veiled mod, which is usually going to be a desirable mod. I get to craft a mod typically, and then when the other mods are good as well, it makes it a pretty complete item. I'm actually going to go over here next. I'm going to go up to here and then take these, because these are actually getting buffed to 2% according to the patch notes that like just released yesterday. So I'll be taking these. Normally I would just ignore these and go straight over here, but since these are 2% now, I think I'm going to take them, because now that I have those 2%, 2%, 2% instead of the original 1, it makes these nodes a lot more valuable as well, because I can get like increased scouting reports found in my map. I might take this one as well, and then we're just going to go straight to Unwavering Vision after that. So yeah, so Unwavering Vision, I'm going to take this. This is going to give me 20 Atlas points, and I don't care about Scarabs right now at all. It's not going to matter. So after that, I just take all of these connected nodes, and we should be good to go. Like, should be no issues at this point. I'll probably take these Kirak nodes. We're gonna have a lot of points to use at this rate. So you kind of see what's going on here. I just get all of these connected nodes pretty much, and since I don't really care about this Atlas at all, I'm not even gonna path into anything. I'm just gonna take like map stuff. So I'm just dropping tons of maps. I have no problem. All of my Atlas is completed very early on. I'm actually not gonna heist this time because Detonate Dead just doesn't require any gear. Technically, I could heist for Poet's Pen, but I don't mind playing self-cast DD at all, so I'm not going to worry about that. So anyway, let's go ahead and go into the in-game Atlas. Okay, and here is the fully completed Atlas. Obviously, I'm not going to have 152 points. These are the least powerful nodes, because technically these are kind of dead nodes right here, so I would probably drop that first. And 147 still is quite a lot, but I can just drop this pack size here and drop this if I need to, if it's a little bit too difficult. Or I could take away some more map effect, or even these beyond nodes up here. So it is pretty flexible, but I'll go through it with you real quick. I'm not going to like focus on it like this Atlas a whole lot because it honestly might change. I know for sure I'll be going for this right at the start, like day 1, day 2. But I don't know how much scarabs are going to be. There are a lot of sources of scarabs. Scarabs are coming from your Atlas. Scarab rewards are added to strong boxes by default. Scarabs are replacing Awakened Sextants for any, like, I'm pretty sure any Awakened Sextant reward type, such as from Sanctum, is being replaced with Scarabs. So Scarabs are going to be very plentiful. So originally I thought they would be quite, you know, not have much value to them. I thought they'd be like pennies pretty much, but that is mainly because you can reroll Scarabs with Harvest, but that has been removed, and so that kind of changes the game completely. Scarabs, like there are going to be certain Scarabs that are very expensive, and so you know, this Unwavering Vision Atlas, which you know, I've said it a few times, it gets rid of Scarabs, but you get 20 Atlas points. It's very strong, but Scarabs might be valuable enough after day 1 to where I want to drop this Atlas. If I do that, it will probably be maybe dropping Legion or Expedition first, or possibly Map Effect and taking like a more Scarab-oriented Atlas. So it's up in the air. But anyway, here's what I have so far. I want to farm Rog. I think Rog is going to be insanely powerful. I'll have a video over like the top Rog crafts that I think that there will be this league. So I do take those expedition nodes because honestly, buying logbooks has been a nightmare the past couple of leagues. Like Rog has been like 30 to 40 chaos. I pay the price anyway because it's still worth it in my opinion, but definitely cuts out a lot of profit. So it would be nice if I can just farm those books myself, which is why I take Danig and Rog here. So I can get those Danig and Rog artifacts while I'm doing these maps, and then, you know, I'm getting logbook drops and stuff from the expedition. This actually puts me at 100% chance for expedition. I have Legion because this DD Impulsa build has been able to clear Legion quite well at about like 70 to 80% of the power of a Lightning Arrow League starter, which is really strong. Like obviously Lightning Arrow just completely surpasses everything once it gets Headhunter, but before then, you know, my build is quite competitive, and I don't really plan on farming Legion the entire league start, so it's not like I, you know, feel like I'm missing out too much, because I'm probably going to move into like Deli Orb farming, as in like 80% Delirious mapping with MF, so not too worried about it there, and I'll be dropping Legion at that point. But yeah, I'll be doing Legion, mainly because Legion has guaranteed loot. Even if you don't magic find and you don't drop like Divines or something from the rares, there are going to be war hordes that have double loot, like double reward types like currency, maps, etc. There's going to be a lot of guaranteed loot at the start of a league. Even if you don't have a lot of quantity on your map, you're still going to get loot from these war hordes, so it's really, really good. And then next to Legion, I have Beyond, because we actually get Beyond guaranteed as well, which is absurd. And that is mainly just for tainted currency. That's actually why I have the Keystone, because the boss is probably going to be pretty tanky, and I'm going to be honest, I have a lot of experience killing the Beyond boss, because I used to do like a lot of Crimson Temples the past few leagues, and the boss usually just drops complete garbage. And I really don't want to spend time on a boss that 90% of the time is going to drop garbage, and then a lot of the time ends your Beyond super early in the map. So it honestly, I just want to get rid of it and just pump tainted rewards. You know, try to get as much tainted currency as possible, because tainted fusings are usually worth a lot. So I have that taken here. I don't take this node because I don't get the boss anyway. I have these nodes for the quantity of items dropped from Beyond Demons. I should probably take one of these notables. The thing is, I'm not really convinced about it because I'm not magic finding, so I don't really have an incredibly high chance at dropping basic currency or div cards and unique items anyway. Keep in mind, basic currency is not tainted currency. It's non-league content currency, so literally the most basic currency in the game. So I'm not too worried about that in the first place, because like I said, I'm not MFing. These nodes are actually very strong now, though. These buffed pack size nodes, keep it like, look at this. This is 10, 20, and then 30. Actually, okay, so 40. I was wrong earlier. It's like 40% increased pack size of Searing Exarch mobs. That is crazy, because when you take like a node like 1% chance at dropping a Chaos Orb, that is going to be 40% increased monsters that are going to be able to drop that, you know, those Chaos Orbs or whatever else you get from the altars. So pretty nuts, kind of necessary in my opinion. if you do want to do this kind of strat. And then lastly is going to be some Deli Mirror chance. You know, Deli Mirror is just good to have. It's more loot. More Beyond is going to be spawning because there's going to be a lot of tight, dense packs. So yeah, not really worried about the Delirium Mirror rewards. I don't get a lot from that. You know, maybe some Cluster Jewels drop or something. Deli Orbs, I'll probably store to the side for later use, but I'm not too worried about that. It's mainly the monsters. Might as well. It's not very many Atlas points because these buff nodes are just kind of absurd. And then lastly is map effect mods. This is to make up for like losing Wandering Path. We're able to get a lot of map effect. That is the only reason I have Unwavering Vision taken right now, is so I can just max out on these map effect mods. Because like I explained earlier in the video, with like that 80+% map effect, you're going to be just multiplying the amount of loot and the pack size in your maps just by a ton, by like 80+%, right? So it's really, really, really good for that. And then there's this like invasive adversaries node. If it's anything like Ruckus, it's not going to be that impressive, but it's probably going to be decent for 1 point. But yeah, that's like my entire Atlas explained. I know I don't actually have any of the new League nodes. To be honest, people are going to be like, why don't you have the League nodes? Don't you want to craft with the new system? I mean, I do, but I have a feeling people aren't really going to know what to do with coffins yet, and as a result, they're going to be kind of cheap at the start. So if I really want to use them, I'll just go buy them off of trade. So I'm not going to worry about them at the start. Like I said, everything's flexible. I might switch to them later if someone finds out some tech, like that maybe, or if coffins are actually really expensive. We will see. And same thing with scarabs. I'm willing to switch as soon as, you know, some news comes out. Like I'm checking the trade site. Things are actually expensive. But yeah, so there's that. I'm probably not going to switch to Breach, because Breach just does not drop enough loot inherently. I know it can drop some good loot in the form of Breach Stones and Breach Uniques, but past that, it doesn't have enough like guaranteed loot like Legion has. So I don't know. I did some Breach testing. I wasn't really impressed. Harvest, for example. Harvest, usually Life Force, is very, very cheap early League. Like I'm talking like 8 to 10,000 Life Force per Divine, so I'm really not that impressed by it early League. Maybe, you know, maybe Life Force is actually really expensive though this time, in which case I could easily like switch it out for something else that's not giving me as much loot. So, if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. But I just want to show you guys my Atlas. I'll have it posted under the YouTube video and in the Google Sheet as well. So anyway, I will see you guys later. Hope you have a great League start, and I will see you in the next video.